Again, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Zoe Garino. I'm the Managing Assistant Director of the Restorative Justice Grant at Kean University. And on behalf of the Holocaust Resource Center and Diversity Council of Kean University, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce both Channy Laux and also Alexis Herr from the University of San Francisco. And we're so excited to have them with us today. Channy Laux is a survivor of the Cambodian Genocide, and she is also the founder of the Cambodian Genocide Resource Center. She was just 13 years old when the Khmer Rouge took over the country in 1975. And from 1975 to 1979, she endured starvation, horrendous working conditions, repeated separations from her family, and sickness. In June of 1979, she was able to come to Lincoln, Nebraska, effectively becoming a refugee. And from there have been so many accomplishments, some of which we'll hear about today. And I just want to say before I push this over to Channy and Alexis to get started that we want to keep this, of course, as informative as possible. There will be an opportunity for Q&A at the end that Alexis is going to be running. So you are more than welcome to send things in the chat so we can get questions answered. So definitely hold questions till the end, take good notes so we have questions. And also we want to keep this respectful. So be respectful to your fellow participants, our wonderful speakers and hosts. So I will push this over to our hosts to get started. And again, just thank you so much for joining us today. We're so honored to have you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alexis Herr. I am a comparative genocide historian, and I work with Channy at the Cambodian Genocide Resource Center, which is a nonprofit here in the Bay Area, in San Francisco area, that works on Cambodian genocide education. So my goal for today is to give you a very brief overview of the Cambodian genocide in like 15 minutes, just to kind of get you acclimatized to this history, and then we're going to hand it over to Channy to share her story. So give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can show you some pictures. Okay. All right. Want to make sure that you can't see behind the screen, right? Are we good? Yes?
You can.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay, there we go. That should be
Perfect.
Better. Good. Okay, cool. All right. So first and foremost, I just want to thank every single one of you who was in attendance today, to all the students, to all the teachers who brought this programming to you, because most students in the US never learn about the Cambodian genocide, let alone have the opportunity to hear from a survivor. This matters because when we don't learn about the history of violence, we will repeat it. So for this reason, I want you to think of today's virtual talks as an opportunity for you all to be empowered by what you hear today. Learning about genocide, while certainly sad, should also feel empowering. The reason why it should feel empowering is because the starting point to preventing genocide is identifying how it begins. So my short talk today is going to frame the events leading up to the genocide, and then Channy will share with you the outcome of unchecked violence. Firstly, before we begin, before we do anything else, I have a question I want you to think about. When we say there was a genocide in Cambodia, what does that mean? We often think of genocide as interchangeable with words like evil, or people often associate the word genocide with the Holocaust, but actually genocide is a very specific legal term intended to rebut what this guy here, Winston Churchill, former Prime Minister of the UK, described during the Holocaust as a crime without a name. What that means is that if we don't have something defined as a crime, We can't prevent it, we can't stop it, and we can't punish it. Okay, so during the Holocaust, there was no notion of genocide. Okay. After the Holocaust ended, we had the creation of the United Nations Genocide Convention. Okay, and as part of this convention, it includes a legal definition of genocide. According to the UN Genocide Convention of 1948, genocide is defined as actions committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. I want to draw your attention to the phrase intent to destroy. The crime of genocide requires intent to destroy a people. How does a person decide they want to destroy another group? We aren't born evil. We aren't born wanting to murder others. Okay? So how do we get here? In other words, how do we get to a picture like this of a perpetrator of the Cambodian genocide wielding a gun at innocent Cambodians in 1975? This is a very famous photo of the start of this genocide. And I want to draw your attention to the fact that the person in this picture holding the gun is a young man. And in fact, many of the perpetrators of this genocide were young. So how did they come to support a government and a regime intent on destroying their neighbors? How do we get to this photo? One thing I can't stress enough is that genocide does not happen overnight. People don't one day wake up with the intent to destroy the people they know. The type of animosity and hatred that leads to genocide doesn't start at a 10 out of 10. It starts lower and builds. And that is a key takeaway for us. We have to stop things before they reach this 10 out of 10 level. Now, I'm going to give you a really basic, simplified version of the Cambodian genocide. When I teach about it in my college courses, we spend a couple weeks on it, right? So we have 15 minutes together. So let's just give you kind of the talking points of how did we get here. On the very basic level, this genocide was caused by two competing worldviews. Okay, on one side, you have communism. Okay, and this is represented by the Khmer Rouge. These are the perpetrators of the genocide, and they are supported by China and the Soviet Union. Okay. Now, in this communist worldview, it calls for an egalitarian society where everyone is theoretically treated equal, but in reality, this was not the case. On the other side, you have a democratic perspective. This is represented by the Khmer Republic, which was the government in power prior to the genocide. Okay, it was supported by the United States and other Western nations, and theoretically, it supported a free market and capitalism. These two worldviews were part of a bigger kind of zeitgeist, a bigger perspective and context to what was going on in the world after World War II. And this is the Cold War, which is from 1947 to 1991. Basically, different nations in the country were trying to fight between these two worldviews of communism and democracy. And it played out as well in Cambodia. Okay. But just to be clear, having different views, that alone does not cause genocide, right? Like think about the United States. There are two main political parties in the US, Republicans and Democrats, and they have different perspectives of how things should work in our government and in our world, but we don't have genocide between these groups. So difference alone doesn't cause genocide. Okay, so the question then is, how did different political and social views become so divisive that genocide occurred? Again, genocide doesn't happen overnight, okay? In order for the leaders of the Khmer Rouge, the perpetrators, to gain followers and purchase among Cambodians early on, we have to acknowledge some of this pre-genocide context. Okay? During the genocide, the Khmer Rouge sought to eliminate all Western influence in Cambodia. Their distrust of Western governments stems in part to the nation's long history of occupation under France. So from 1864 until 1955, Cambodia was occupied by France. Okay. And this meant that there was almost 100 years of exploitation of people, of a culture, of resources. Just it completely changes the history and the future of Cambodia. Now, after World War II, a lot of these nations that had colonial holdings, like France, like England, like the United States, started to give up their territories. Okay, and that happens in Cambodia. This gentleman here, Prince Norodom Sihanouk, took over after the French left. And while he was generally liked in Cambodia, he was also pro-communist and pro-Mao. Mao was the leader in China. And in the Cold War context, right, this bigger context of communism versus democracy, okay, this was problematic to Western nations. So in 1970, Prince Norodom Sihanouk was overthrown by Long Nol. And Long Nol declares himself president, minister of defense, and head of the army. And he is backed by Western governments, including the US. So much so that between 1970 and 1975, the US government spent $1.85 billion supporting him. So we have Long Nol take power, okay? And this starts a civil war. This is the 5 years leading up to the genocide. You have a civil war, okay? The civil war is fought between Long Nol, okay, here, who represents democracy and Western governments, okay, and the Khmer Rouge, which is led by the gentleman pictured here, Pol Pot, and he's on the right. And he is, again, the leader of the Khmer Rouge. So these two groups are fighting, and it's a fight over these two political ideologies and so much more. By 1973, the Khmer Rouge, okay, people who will become the perpetrators of the genocide, have control of most of Cambodia, okay, with the exception of a few provinces and the capital city of Phnom Penh. As the civil war is happening, some 2 million Cambodians fled to the capital city to escape the violence caused by the civil war on one hand, and on the other, by US bombing. So what's happening is in Cambodia, you can kind of see on this picture with President Nixon, next to Cambodia is Vietnam, and just how there is a fight between communism and democracy playing out in Cambodia, there is a war similarly happening in Vietnam. And the US is deeply involved in the Vietnam War. To push out Vietnamese rebels hiding in Cambodian borderlands, theoretically, the US started to bomb the borderlands. In total, between 1969 and 1973, more than 500,000 tons, that's 1 billion pounds of munitions descended on rural Cambodia. In 1973 alone, the US dropped 250,000 tons of bombs on Cambodia in just 6 months. Kind of help put this in perspective, this was 1.5 times as much explosives unleashed on Japan during the whole of the Second World War. This map shows you the extent of bombing in Cambodia. It was incredibly extensive, and it furthered the belief that the West was interfering with Cambodia. It helped motivate some Cambodians to want to support the Khmer Rouge perpetrators who were anti-West, right? Because look what the West was doing. So let's go back to this picture. On April 17th, 1975, the Khmer Rouge enters Phnom Penh. This is kind of the last holdout, the capital city. And that is the official start of the genocide. Within hours, they started implementing their plan of murder, forced labor, and persecution. And the entire city of Phnom Penh, which has over 2 million people in it, is ordered into the countryside. When members of the Khmer Rouge first came into Phnom Penh, when people first joined up to join this Communist Party, it wasn't yet 100% clear to every single person what was in store for the future. They didn't necessarily realize the regime that they had joined up was going to commit mass murder. Within 4 years, under the leadership of the Khmer Rouge, some 3 million people died. In total, the Khmer Rouge was responsible for the death of nearly a quarter of the entire country. This picture, there's 2 pictures that hopefully you can see on your screen here. The first is what's in the background, and that is a picture from S21. It was a torture center in prison and murder center during the genocide. And it is now a memorial, and it includes photographs, like you can see on the wall, of individuals who were arrested and sent there and murdered. And it's a strong representation of these 3 million people who died. But the picture you have in front of this young girl, this 13-year-old girl, is Channy Chhi Laux, who's the woman that you are now going to hear from shortly. And I wanted to include Channy's photo because I want us to remember that genocide is not only about those who died, it is also about those who survived. We are so fortunate to be able to hear from Channy that she's willing to share her story with us, because most people in these photos that you see here couldn't tell us their stories. Part of the reason why we study genocide is to honor those who are unable to speak with us, those who lost their lives, but also to honor and support those who survived, to learn what they have to tell us. Throughout this talk, I have said that genocide doesn't happen overnight. And I also want to show you this picture to stress this point. Okay, this is a picture of Angkor Wat. It's probably Cambodia's most famous Buddhist temple. Okay, it is beautiful. If you Google Cambodia, these are the photos that come up because this is where all the tourists now, when they go to Cambodia, want to go and see. Okay, this temple complex is located in the northeast. It's located northeast of where Channy grew up, in a town called Siam Reap. It holds the Guinness record for the largest religious structure in the world. The temple was built by the Khmer people. This is an ethnic group native to Cambodia that makes up over 90% of Cambodia's 17 million population today. And Angkor Wat means city of temples in the Khmer language. I wanted to show you these photos because I want us to remember that the history of Cambodia does not start with the genocide. Cambodians did not experience genocide because they are a historically violent people. They have a beautiful, rich, and dynamic history. And for thousands of years, Cambodians lived together without genocide. Yes, there was war, sure, there was violence, but genocide, no. Genocide happened because Cambodians came to view their neighbors as their enemies, their countrymen and women as impediments in national progress. Genocide involves the intent to destroy, but the perpetrators of the genocide weren't born hating their countrymen and women. Rather, differences of political opinion and worldviews became so radicalized that they could be used to justify mass murder. Genocide intent doesn't start out that way. It starts smaller, and that is the lesson I want you to take away from this talk, okay? Unchecked prejudice is what gives rise to genocidal intent, and it can be stopped. It is not inevitable, okay? So I have bent your ear now for 15 minutes, giving you the framework of this history. I now want to turn over to Channy, my colleague and good friend, to share her story and bring this all to life for us. So Channy, go ahead and take it away.
Good morning. Thank you, Alexis. I think it was a very engaging historical overview of what happened leading to Cambodian genocide. You know, today is exactly 49 years when the communist government, the Khmer Rouge, took over Cambodia. April 17, 1975. To me, it was a beginning of living hell. For 4 years after they took over, I lived through the most inhumane condition, you know, endure physical and emotional torture that no other human being should ever have to experience. So today I'm gonna try my best to share with you a glimpse of what happened. Okay. So the Khmer Rouge, many people ask me, who are they? What are they? Why are they so vicious? They like thief, the worst citizen of Cambodia. No, they just people like us, like Alexis was sharing. They just have different ideology. They believe that capitalism is the root cause of human inequality and suffering. And their belief communism is a more moral way to lead the country. And they wanted the society where everybody have equal status, equal wealth. The idea that sounds good, you know, who would want that? But it's not realistic. And they want to revert the progress of the country, like in technology and education, to a slash and burn society. The idea that seems so illogical, nobody took them seriously, so radical that the only way to realize it is to control and eliminate your opposition. You know? And that's what they did. The very next thing after they took over the country, they proceeded to eliminate things that they don't like. You know, any sign of Westerner influence is destroyed. You know, cars, trash, burn, farm equipment destroy. And they, to control us, they evacuated us from our home. And that doesn't happen like a week later or a month later. That's happened the very next day. The very next day. I don't mean next days. The very next day. I woke up by a sound of gunfire. It was early morning, 5 o'clock, like early before the sun come up. And I actually, before I start talking, I was looking at what's the temperature of Cambodian like today. And it's like 103 degrees. And it took me back to that very first day. I woke up by the gunfire and screaming and yelling on the speaker, vicious voice and demanding. And the next thing I know, I found myself downstairs in the main floor. My bedroom was upstairs. And there was 2 soldiers in the house. And my mom was under a gunpoint. They told us to leave before they kill somebody. And there was no time to say why, what's going on, or where are we going, or can I have more time to pack? There's none of that. It's like a thief coming over to your house and demand for you to leave. And you do exactly what they tell you. So in less than 5 minutes, all of us was out of the house. And, when we were in front of the house, we see a whole bunch of our neighbor was with us, just experienced the same situation. And they push into the street, onto the highway. And it's not like a pickup by a bus or anything. They tell us too much, We are, at that time, we were next to Thai border. But they tell us to walk on the opposite direction. And we have no destination, no provision. There's right away, after a few hours, people was crying because kid was missing their parents, and the parent couldn't, had food for them. So they were thirsty and hungry, but nobody can help them. The Khmer Rouge didn't have any provision, and all of us was in the same situation. I walked on that day, I walked to, I don't know what's going to happen. It was like, oh, things will settle down. But the walking, the experience was like, why are we doing this, And it was just not walking away from home, but people that we trust was being, taken away from us. Community that we're comfortable with, and make that, things that make us strong was right away being ripped away from us. And on the road to where, on that highway, I walked past by the first dead body I ever see. And because during the 5 years war, we live in a town that is very rich agricultural land, and the Khmer Rouge would not attack that town. So I really didn't experience the gunfire and the war, the blood, and that was my first time to experience the dead body. I see a lot of refugees from other towns to come to our town. And, when we get to a certain point, they told us to get off the highway. And to me, I always think about that was a turning point for me, because when I stepped off the highway, I was into the area, the commune, that is so different than the life that I ever knew before then. And it was stepping away from civilization. Life that, I had was left behind. For 4 years, I never see any sign of technology or, like I saw one truck for 4 years, and that truck was Chinese government truck that came over to collect the rice that we harvest. But then into this, they push us to this little commune, and it was so different, to me, it felt like, even when I read things about in the book, I never even knew that they exist, The smell, the area was like, there was no street among home, and home was not home that I'm used to. It was just huts, and the tiniest hut. And the only bigger structure in this commune was a pagoda. And there was no running water, no electricity. And everything smelled different. People talk different, look different. And they didn't, expect us there. We didn't want to be there, but we just pushed together. And I remember, that first night, I was, sleeping under somebody's hut, and they were kind enough to take us under their hut. Otherwise, we would be sleeping without any protection in the open. And I remember I couldn't sleep because things smell so different. And I wake up in the morning and realized that they actually burned the dry cow pie to keep the mosquito and the bugs away from the animal and people. I'm sharing this with you because not that, you know, the world doesn't exist like that. That place in the world now that probably still, you know, life carry on this way and people there still happy. But in my situation is a day before that, I was sleeping in my own bedroom, right? With a mattress. And it was like I enter into a nightmare and never come out. And there, they started to, the comparative started to targeting different kind of group. And they would target anybody who doesn't have the same ideology as they do. It's not like we declare it, but the fact that we, if you had make a living before they took over the country without physical labor, you would be targeted. So they targeted like teacher, definitely librarian, anybody at all, you know, that didn't make a living with that physical labor. And it's not just intellectual and educated people, but even the, you know, the religious leader, to them said, "You're lazy, you just preach, and we don't, you know, the religion is not something they follow. You know, it's in their belief everybody's equal, everybody woke." And my family was targeted because my father was a business owner. And it's not like my father started off with a rich family business handed to him. He was, my grandfather was a refugee from China escaping communists. So as a refugee to Cambodia during that time, there is no program to help you. So my grandfather would make a living as much, you know, new life without, you know, much resource. And by the time my father was a young man, he never got to go to school because you had to pay the government at that time to go to school. And while his friends in school, he's selling treat. And he told me that he learned the language because some of the teacher let him stand by the window as long as he doesn't sell the treat while the class is going on. So I have a lot of respect for teachers. Anyway, so he eventually learned the language. He didn't write very good, but he knew how to read. And he told me he did that by one teacher allowed him to stand on the window, by the window. But eventually he worked hard in Cambodia during that time. If you work hard, just like American now, you will succeed. And he eventually owned an import-export business between Cambodia to Thailand, to Vietnam, and Singapore. And when I know right from wrong, I always never experienced the suffering, or I wouldn't use the word suffering, the endurance that he had to endure, you know, not enough food or has to work hard while your friend is, you know, playing sports and all that. I heard the story. But the thing is, communists claim to help people poor, make people, you know, have equal status and fair. They claim to help people like my father, but as soon as they took over the country, how my father got to that point, it didn't matter. The fact that he owned a business, to them is like he must be a crook. He's the boss, so he didn't work physically. So he exploiting other people weakness. So my family was targeted. And soon after they took over the country, we didn't have much choice. You know, we left our home with whatever we can carry with our own hand, and you know, and it's not very much. So right away, the government controlled every aspect of our life. So we eventually, you know, built a place to build our own hut. And I always think about that hut, even though it's small compared to our home. You know, we had 2-story big home, and you know, my you know, right before the communists took over, I felt like I live a life not very different from kid grew up in this country. I had we had cars and motorcycle, and we even had refrigerator in our home because of my father's success. And back then, it's you know, I listened to English songs, The Carpenter. I listened to songs and I sing along, and I didn't even know English, but I sing along to some of it. I listened to French music. I remember having like a bicycle with a high handle. I don't know what they call it here. I have a bell-bottom jeans. I was so happy, you know. I look at my husband picture, he grew up in this country. I said, yeah, I remember that. But then 4 years, while you continue on, I was in labor camps. So I think about that hut that we built, a small hut, but I think about it as it's very sentimental, even though it's nothing compared to what we had before, because that hut made me think that it's the last time my family was together, you know, we were allowed to be together. After then, you know, our family is destroyed. And in that hut, you know, this has happened like a couple of weeks after they took over the country. And every day we had to report to work. And I never know anything about farming. My family, none of us do. And we was, how you say, we were being picked on because we was vilified of the way we had make our living, and scold and shame because we didn't know how to plant rice or something like that. And I remember the rain start to come, and it's even the first thing you woke up, even the rain, you know, in the monsoon part of the world, tropical world, the monsoon rain just like heavy and constantly. Maybe during the day, sometime light, sometime windy, but never stop, just days and days. And I remember wake up in the first thing in the morning, tired, and but still had to step into the rain without any protection. You know, we didn't have all the gear that would protect us from the rain. We just walk into the rain and working all days in the rain until the sun come down and there's no lunch break. And then, you know, it's not just working. When you're in that situation, you never been in that situation before, your body just couldn't handle it. Many things happened to me, you know. I have constant rash and blisters and cuts, and but those are minimal compared to what you do when you come home without anything to eat. You know, the government give us ration. They give us like every week they give us something to eat, to cook with, and then the ration keep reducing. Eventually, the ration like 1 tablespoon of rice per person per day. When it get to be that bad, I remember part of me was hoping that they've gone too far to treat human beings like this. I know the world would not watch what they're doing. I was like, oh, maybe now the world will do something about, to stop this from happening. But then, days after day, and I knew about the United Nations. I was 13 years old. I knew about it. We call it Angka Sahat Prachiachit. And I heard my dad talk about it to a neighbor, but there's none of that, that was supposed to help us, right? We were hoping, and none came. And then I said, oh, some of my family was able to escape the country to other part of the world, to France, to I have uncles and aunt, live in Paris. I said that, oh, they will come. I know they will come. Some of the family that able to escape, I know they would come and help us, but nothing, And then I look at the men around me, including my family, my father, my brother, my uncle. I was like, almost like, aren't you supposed to stand up and fight for us, protect the young and the weak? How come you just take it, But when you really think about it, it happened so fast, and when when you threaten to, they threaten to kill your family, the very first thing you want to do is to protect your family. So you do exactly what they tell you. And then by the time you said that doesn't matter, they're gonna kill us all anyway, you're too weak. You didn't have food, you have nothing to protect yourself. Everything was confiscated from you. You don't even have friends that you trust. They separated us from our town, people we trust and all that. But that's how they control you, that's how they control us. Through food, fear, and humiliation. And I remember, going through starvation is not something, when nowadays, every time I heard people say, I'm starving, it take me back to, no, you don't. You're hungry. There's a very different thing to say I'm starving or I'm hungry or I'm tired. Because starvation, you might imagine, I think most people would think of starvation as, oh, they don't have enough food. So they catch on with their body weak, and they catch on with disease and all of that. Yes, it's true. But more than that, starvation humiliate you. You do things that you wish to forget. You're ashamed of your action. And your body feel pain. Pain not because you're sick, but because you're hungry. It's actual pain, the cramp. Sorry. I remember sitting, not having food to eat among my family. There's nothing to talk about. And I feel my stomach just churning, twist and turn and growling, and drooling. It's physically pain, and emotionally destroy you. And I remember at night, I wish that I pray at night that we believe in Buddhism, and I would say, like, whatever I did in the past lifetime, I learned from it. Take me tonight, don't make me come back. And every morning I came back, I swear, I said, maybe the Khmer Rouge is right. The religion is nothing. I never, experienced anything that my family did that was bad. They always, my parents always helping people, and we don't deserve this. So maybe the Khmer Rouge is right. Religion is just an excuse to make, weak people accept things as the way it is. That's what they believe. They blame you for, if you're weak, they said, it's a previous life that you've done. That's what the Khmer Rouge telling us. So I thought maybe they're right, And then every time I felt like thing can't get worse, it got worse. The next thing they did was they came to take my older brother and sister to labor camp. And I thought, I'm so lucky because I was too young to be taken away from my parents. I'm so lucky, even though I felt sorry for my sister, and especially my sister. She was crying so much. My older brother, they were just like straight face and stern and not happy and just fear. But my sister was crying. She cried so much. And I remember my mother would give her blessing. And my mom would say, she said, I'm not a priest, I'm not religion man, but I ask you to help my kid to give her blessing, make me a monk for a second so my word can be true. And I watched my mom bless my sister, and they're gone. And a week later, they came to get me. And I remember I want to say goodbye to my brother. I have a younger brother, my father and my mom, but nobody there for me to say goodbye to. My father was in the field working with me at the time, and the soldier came, and when they call out to me and to other kid my age, there was like silent. There was no pleading, no fighting, no word. They call out you by the way you look. They said comrade. To me, they called me comrade with short sleeve. You need to come with us. And I walked to them without any protest. I felt like I was being hypnotized. I have to do what they tell me. And I was trying to connect to my father, maybe eye connection, so that I want, maybe how much I love you. I want to say goodbye by, connecting my eyes with him. But he continued to working like nothing happened. I saw some parents, they watched a kid like they see a ghost, and everybody was standing still watching the kid taken away just by demanding. But my father was still going back and forth between the rice stack and the plant. He was collecting rice. And he never looked at me. And I remember pleading, it within myself to have my dad look at me. I want to say goodbye to him. I may never see him again. But he didn't look at me. And I came back to the hut trying to collect my stuff, but there's not much to collect. I took with me an outfit that I carry from my home, and a plate and a spoon. And I thought my mother wasn't there. My little brother was, he was 9 years old at the time. He was in the field working, herding the water buffalo. And then my mom was sick, so she's not allowed to stay in the hut. She was moved to what they call a hospital, but to me, I always call it a sick home, because you go in there, you get no treatment. If you recover naturally, you'll be able to come out and work with everybody. Otherwise, you're in that sick home. You have less to eat because you're not productive. Anyway, so my mom was in the sick home, and I remember take whatever I can to say goodbye to my mom. And on the way to the sick home, I think about all the thing I did, you know, how not so much about I will be away from my family, but all the thing I did, I want to at least tell my mom that I love them and I love her, and ask her for forgiveness, things that I didn't do, wasn't, you know, a good daughter or action that I not proud of. But when I saw her, all I could do was crying. And I couldn't say anything else. And even crying, you're not supposed to let them know you're crying, because why are you crying? That means you disagree with us. You should be happy because we are taking you to be better, because your parents are have so much influence from the capitalism. They are corrupted. We're going to take you, we're going to educate you, we're going to bring you to be a better citizen. And so even when we cry, we're not allowed to express our, you know, it's not in the open. And I remember my mom didn't cry. She didn't even sad or anything. She was just so calm, and you know, she reached out. She was so weak, she couldn't walk very far. She reached out to me and picked out, I remember I have a dry dirt on my forearm. She picked those out and she said, "Don't cry, honey. And if they take you to the camp, maybe you get to see your sister." That's what she said. And then she said, "Remember, if we have life, we have hope." And all I could think of is, "Mom, please cry for me. Why don't you cry for me?" But I couldn't say it. She never heard it. So I walked away from my family, people that I know. I don't have anybody. I was 13 years old. I was walking to my first labor camp. And that picture that Alexis showed was taken 2 months before the communists took over. And by the time I got to the labor camp, they start to teach us the new rule. One of the thing is you you should forget about your parents, and when you see other people about the same age as your parents, they are all your parents. You don't have a sister, you don't have a brother, you have comrades. You should treat everybody equal in their own status. So it's not like you treat your sister better than your comrade. They're all the same. And one of the things they taught us was they told us that we had to don't call each other sister and brother. It was all comrade. And then, you know, they keep telling us rule, and one of the rule was all the girls that have your hair past your shoulder, you need to cut it. You need to, at all time, it should be short. And I remember I was, when they tell us this, we were standing up and online, we were standing up at attention and listen to them. I remember when they told me that, I was like, just, I just want to scream. I just want to run somewhere. I don't have a choice. I don't know what to do, but I know I had no hope left. I thought of what my mom said, earlier in the day, if you have hope, or you have life, you have hope. I remember thinking, Mom, you're wrong. You're wrong. Even everything I have no control of anything, How could I have hope? And even the length of your hair is being controlled by government. And my hair, in that picture you see, was already short. And then when the leader walked by, she said, "Comrade, you don't have to stop. You don't have to stand in line. You can be out," because my hair was short. And I go from wanting to cry and scream and go ahead and let them shoot me, to smile, a glimpse, It's like the situation does not allow them to control us 100%, So I felt like I won because of my hair. They cannot, they cannot control me. I also thought of, why does it matter? I've gone through starvation, I've gone through sickness, separated from my family, and, um, became so skinny, almost like a skeleton. All of that. So what, they want to cut my hair? No, but it was so humiliating, and you feel like, God, where are they going to stop? You felt like you have some control of yourself, and you don't have any. They control every aspect of your life. And later on, when and that's why when I published the book, I was thinking about that time, like short hair detention. Felt like they treat us all like a criminal in the whole country. If you're not with them, you're a criminal. And I felt like, in the labor camp, there was so many things that you can't imagine you've gone through and survived. You have no control of your life, period. It's like what song you listen to, who you marry, at one, and every day you go to work, and after work, you're not allowed to sleep. You're supposed to have meeting every day. First, it was meeting every day between 3 people. Once a week is a meeting between 10 people. Once a month is a meeting between 30 people, and then it repeats. And then in the middle of the night after the meeting, you have to guard your tent as if Americans gonna come with, and we take turn in the middle of the night being woke up by our comrade to guard the tent. We always treated like a criminal, a soldier, and our labor is not about productivity. It's about torture. And one time when we go to a meeting of the big group, and more than 30 people. It was a meeting like hundreds of girls and hundreds of boys, and they lined up the boys and girls, and some of them got married. They just called it in, because the government believed that we need to have more baby, because during the 2 or 3 years there was no baby, because people starving, and the body's not the same anymore. So and many times during the labor camp. I, woke up. Some of the camp, they took me all the way to the jungle between Cambodia and Thailand. And we were to work on patch or field that nobody ever touched before, and would slash, with our own bare hand and tools, primitive tools, to cut the brush and the trees and tilt the soil to grow rice. And a place that, before the communists, nobody would do that. And they did it because everybody was supposed to work, right? No teacher, no lawyer, no banker, no doctor. Everybody was farming. So either they don't have enough work for people, or they torture you. But you doing things because they tell you, because it's torture, not because productivity. And I remember one camp, I was so far away, and every time I walked to work, water would come to my chest. And it'd take about 3 hours to get to the work site. And you work about an hour or two. They have somebody carry food for you. But some of the food it's not food like you would expect a full meal. Like, it just, and then it was not food. It was just whatever they, a group of people can find for you. And when I come back, I remember coming back from the work site to the camp many times in that jungle. I would be the last one to go, last one in line. And deep in the jungle, we heard that, like some girl was killed by a tiger. And I was praying that, that I was the youngest one in the camp. So I was always last. And by the time I get to the camp, sometimes they finish eating already. And when I say eating, it's not like a cafeteria. You sit squat in the mud that come up to your ankle, and you eat in the dark. And you kind of have they had this little lamp to show a profile of the bowl they planted in the middle of, people sitting around. And sometimes you sip on the broth, and sometimes I got a piece of vegetable or a piece of something chewy, and I never like it when I got a piece of something chewy. I felt like, it could be a leech, in my mind, because I just, it's not expected, There's nothing chewy that they would give us. No beef, no pork, nothing like that. And sometime the broth that they gave you, I'm laughing right now, but back then you just brush it off. There would be like a little maggot that dead floating around on top of those broth. It's just, but you eat it anyway. And why you eat those broth? Because those broth have salt, and they control everything. Cambodia is a tropical country. In the monsoon, you could have just go and pick vegetable and cook and eat it, but you're not allowed to do that. You're supposed to go to work. And eventually, they took all the cooking utensil from you. We eat in the longhouse. And and they give you ration, not only, if you don't eat those broth, you have no salt. To me, I eat those broth not because of anything but salt. And my mom used to exchange black gold in the black market, she used to exchange her jewelry for salt, like gold and diamond. Anyway, many times I was thinking, if I just be strong enough to not taking their ration, all this suffering would be gone. But then I thought about what would my mom do, you know? I know a lot of the girl was dying around me, and it's not so much that I feel sad for them. My first thing was their mom didn't even know they're dead. And during those time, I fight to live, and I pray to die in my mom's arm. That was my best wish. Let me die with the comfort of my mother, and let me live so that she have a chance to hold me again. You know, I was always thinking how my mom was very clever. She told me, if you ever miss me at night and I'm not with you, you can flip the pillow and go back to bed, and I will feel your love. I don't know if I believe it or not, but I latch on to that. And in the camp, there's no pillow. I have my, you know, my bag that I put a spare clothes in there, and I lay on that, and I would, in the middle of the night, sometimes the rain come, and you can't sleep because the wind would blow the rain into the sleeping area, and a lot of the girl with me, they still lay down trying to cover themselves, protect themselves from the rain. For some reason, I can't sleep. And I would sit up, and I thought about what my mom said, and I would flip the bag and go back to bed and feel so good. Felt like my mom can feel my love. Anyway, yeah, I can't believe that was almost 50 years ago. You know, the hardest part for me is not the physical pain or even my own pain, emotional pain, but remembering how my family suffer. You know, like my brother, how he pleaded for me to help him. My father was decide to escape, and he decided to take my little brother with him. And my little brother was 14 years old, no, 13 years old at the time. So almost 4 years in the communist. My father couldn't take any more, and he planned the escape, and he would take my little brother with him. And my little brother came to me, and he said he was crying. And I remember telling him, "What's wrong with you? Why are you crying?" He told me that he doesn't just talk, you know, he was shaking in the middle of the heat, shaking and quivering, and tears come up, but no noise. And he able to tell me a word, "I'm scared. I don't want to go." And what did I tell him? I told him, "Are you crazy? I wish Dad take me." And now that I know that he didn't make it, they didn't make it, I wish I could have said something different. I felt like when I said that to him, I was being selfish. I was not listening to his feeling. I was not comforting him. And looking back, I could have said, "Hide, run away. If Dad don't see you, he won't go, or he go without you. He's not gonna look for you and grab you." But I didn't say that because at the time, dying is better than living. You know, for 4 years, when I make it to America, I never thought that I would be able to succeed, you know, go back to school, learning a new language, new culture, new system. I was, you know, in my mind, I was content to be physical labor, you know, like cleaning people's home. And I'm okay with that. And my my body had my body and my mind had been gone through such a tremendous stress that I never thought that I would be the same again. You know, I didn't think that I could conceive and have 2 kids like I do now, because I knew for 4 years. I'm not saying just because I thought, I felt like, because I imagined, I saw what happened for 4 years. My hair never grew, not even an inch. And my body was, before the communists took over, I feel the change of my body to like becoming of age. It was gone, it was depleted. And so seeing myself that way, I was give up already. I felt like I gone through a situation that I'm becoming like a bonsai, you know, I never grow mentally or physically. But here I am today because of the opportunity I got from this country. And the first one who gave me that opportunity was my teachers, my ESL teacher. She taught me English without knowing Cambodian word. And I learned from her without knowing a single word of English. She taught me just like Miss Sullivan, the teacher of Helen Keller, taught her, you know, take my hand and feel her throat, watch her mouth and all that. And I was, you know, didn't want to do it because it's embarrassing, but she was determined. And then when they told me that I have to go back to school, I was thinking that, you know, are you crazy? You know, going back not just to learn English, but to be in high school with other American kids. I felt like this is nothing good's going to come out of it. It would be nothing but humiliation because there's no way that I could make it. But it was my friend and my teacher from that high school. Give me a chance, give me an opportunity. So here I am, and I appreciate you taking time and learning about what happened in the past, history that is so inhumane. It's an atrocity to humankind, not just to Cambodia. This is a history that happened in humankind in our time. And what Alexis and I are trying to do is that we wanted to stop it before it started. We wanted to empower next generation to take action and to be courageous in detecting and understanding things like this, and to prevent it from it being part of the perpetrator. So thank you very much.
Channy, thank you so much for sharing your story. You know, every time you share it, you tell something new, and I'm so grateful for the knowledge that you share with us all. Channy mentioned, just to put it out there, her book, Short Hair Detention, and it is her memoir. And I highly recommend it to any of you who are interested in learning more about Channy's story. So we now have some time for questions. Because most of you are in classrooms with teachers. Perhaps the best way to do this is to submit them to your teacher, and then your teacher can put them in the chat for us, and we can go ahead and answer the questions that way. So I'll give you all a couple minutes to go ahead and collect questions. And as those come in, I would love to just kind of get things rolling and ask a question on my own while we wait for more questions to come into the chat. Channy, I'm curious, when you came to the United States and started at a US high school, right? Were there other Cambodians? Was there anyone at all on campus who spoke Cambodian? What was that like for you?
Yeah, that was one. My sister. And she was older than me. She is older than me. So she had opportunity to learn English before the communists took over. So she had a little bit better understanding than me. Not much, especially after 4 years of not going to school or reading or writing anything. She was separated from me to a different class, to a different level of proficiency. And there was other refugee that was with us, Vietnamese. A lot of Vietnamese student was with us. And so in my class, it's just my ESL, myself, and a few other Vietnamese students. Yeah.
Thank you. I feel like I need a tutorial with you of how to pronounce Cambodian words, because it is the sound of the language is so different from English too. I imagine just even in addition to learning the words, the accent has to be crazy for you.
Yeah.
So, okay, we're getting lots of great questions so far in the chat box. One that has come up is from, I hope I'm saying this correctly, Nutley High School, from Amy's class. How did you get to America, and was this after the genocide or during the genocide?
It was after the genocide. And what happened is in 1979, the Vietnamese soldier have invaded Cambodia and pushed the Khmer Rouge deeper into the jungle. And at that moment, the newcomer, which is the Vietnamese soldier, doesn't know anything about us, where we live, or our status, our data, our family, and the Khmer Rouge was gone. So we're in the country that has no control by any government or by any official. So we took those opportunity to escape the country through jungle between Cambodia and Thailand. And when I did that escape, it was by, walking. I had done in 2 attempts. The first attempt, many of us did not survive. There was like 30 something, I forgot the exact number. And we got lost in the jungle, and many of them didn't make it. I think one baby and a mother make it to Thailand, and the rest of them die in the jungle. And like 8 or 7 of us decide to return back to Cambodia. And as soon as we got back, the Vietnamese was controlling the country by then. They put us in jail. And then after we, my aunt was able to, how you say it, release us from jail, paying the official. And then about a week later, we escape again. A week later, when I through that first escape, I didn't have water, and I was, become unconscious, rolling around in the brush, and my body would get cut. By the time I escaped the second time, I would still have infection on my body from the first escape. The things that I think what people don't understand is that we had, at that time, we felt like there's no way, it's unpredictable what's the next government's going to be. And it's still the case that when you live with that much freedom, with that control of your life, an opportunity to escape is much better than surviving and living. And you do it, you fight to live, not for yourself, but for your family.
Thank you. A student from Chris Giddy's class, have you traveled back to Cambodia since coming to the US? And what are your thoughts about how the people or government of Cambodia have put forth efforts to recover and remember the genocide?
Well, I never gone back. You know, it's that I have 3 siblings that make it. They all older than me. They gone back. They encourage me to go back. They think it's good healing for me. But I think all of us go through, remember differently or endure a different situation. For me, it was too hard for me to think about going back. I did think about it. And, but every time I walk away and decide to not buy the flight ticket. And even I have 2 kids now, they are working now, and they want to go, and they keep pushing me to go. And I say, there's no way I can go. So it's hard for me to go. It's hard. And what I know about what's going on in Cambodia right now is much better than what we were, lived through. But I also know that many of Cambodian friends and family do not want to hear about what happened in the genocide. They have museum, but that's for you guys to visit, not for them, right? I think it could be they don't want to revisit, just as I would not want to revisit the experience and the memory. But my goal is different. Is not to revisit and live in it again, but to relive so that I can share with you, so that we can prevent things like this from happening. To me, it's worth it, to venture into the dark for education purpose. And I find it not healthy to not talk about it. I find it good to move on so that you don't live like a victim, but you should never forget from what you've been through. Otherwise, you never learn anything. So when I heard that some of my Cambodian friends and family in Cambodia does not want to hear anything about genocide. My sister went back and she said that while she went back to help, some family, she was asked to speak. And when she stopped talking, after she'd stopped talking about the experience during the communists, as soon as she come out, my cousin told her, don't say that again, because it's not welcome. It makes people feel uncomfortable. And when I hear that, I go in the opposite direction. That motivated me to continue sharing, because people need to know. The world needs to know what happened. How can we teach our children and the future leader of this country or anywhere to not look at the consequences of violence, of intolerance, of hatred? The consequences. If they don't know the consequences, they might repeat it again, not intentionally. So yeah, my thinking about what happened in Cambodia right now, I'm happy for them, but there's certain things that I disagree with the culture. Don't talk about this. That one I disagree with. Thank you.
We have time for one more question, I think.
Mhm.
So this question is another question from Chris Giddy's classroom. It says, one of my students would like to ask how long it took for you to feel comfortable again in your own skin after the experiences in the Cambodian genocide.
I think it's off and on. It's not like, you know, it's kind of gradual. You think, you know, when I came here, I still have nightmare, you know. I dream in Cambodia, and I remember first time I dreamed in English, I was so happy. I said, how could I dream in English? I was speaking English in my dream. But even after I got a job, no, I think it was before, I almost every night dreaming about violence, you know, and it's always has to do with escape. Like I was with everybody, and all of a sudden I got caught between something happened, and all my friends and family gone, and I was left behind. And then I woke up, or I dream about killing, a lot of violence, a lot of killing, and sometimes not intentional, but at the end somebody's dying. And the weird thing is, all those killing, I did it, and I was so scared. It's almost like I don't want to go to sleep because I don't want to even dream about it, you know. And like I said, you know, a lot of time, like one dream I never forget. I was in the river and I saw a big fish, and I get my paddle and hit it and hit it, and I thought I got fish, but then it floated up as a body. And after that dream, it was hard for me. And I told one of my friends, and he said, before you go to bed, you just repeat the same thing, just like you would do when you meditate in Buddhism. I'm not going to kill. I'm not going to kill. Keep repeating until you fall asleep. Keep repeating. And that first night, I was free. I don't know why I tell you this. What was the question? Oh, how do I get comfortable? I think, you know, immersing in everyday activities, and you never forget. And that's why a lot of time I remember things that was bad. And I would get up in the middle of the night and get in front of my computer and write it down. And I don't mean just write it down, just it was poured out onto, you know, what I'm writing, crying in the middle of the night by myself. Then I go back to bed, you know. And but the nice thing about when I put books together, my memoir together, a lot of time I remember bad thing. And sometimes I write down one word, you know, and then that one would expand into a memory that you never forget because it was too terrible. And but I never remember anything but bad, painful, you know, hurtful, or love that had been torn away, hard to express. But when I put book together, I remember good things. Some of the things that people reach out to me, and I have started to realize some of the things that when I cry, it's not about what they inflicted on me, but I cry because of somebody show compassion. So I remember the first time I cried was an old lady who saw me so skinny. She said, "Do you know where your parent was?" And I started to realize that all this starvation, all this painful, I never cry. It's almost like it was not intentional. It just I don't cry. I mean, it's almost like subconsciously my body said, you know, whatever you do, you're not gonna break me. But I fall apart when somebody showed me compassion. And that lady, after she asked me that, I just fall apart, and somebody reached out to me, and then I remember from that time on, I stopped praying to die, but prayed to live for my mother.
Well, Channy, thank you so much for all that you've shared with us and your openness to doing so. It is always such a gift to hear from you. And I want to thank, of course, all the students and the educators who helped make this possible. Zoe, we will hand it back to you.
All right. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you again to all the educators and the students who attended, and feel free to reach out. We will be reaching out with further updates about upcoming events, and I hope that you have a wonderful Wednesday. Thank you again so much, Channy, and thank you,
Thank
Alexis.
you. Thank you for everybody for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Channy.
Thank you.